Hi, Kingsley here. In this video, I'll share with you the fastest and most surefire way to fixing problems within your marriage. And it won't be what you think. Now, I'm sure you've heard that communication is the most effective way to build strong marriages, or one of the most effective way. And I do believe that it has its place. I teach on effective communication, the different aspects of that, what that is, why it's so important. So I'm not going to disagree that is a very effective way, but I believe that there is a better way. I believe there's a better way. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to share with you in this video will outline what I think just the effective communication is not going to be able to do. So I want to put that up there as we kind of get into this episode or this video today. Now, as I mentioned before, I do place a lot of emphasis on effective communication, but I would rather call what I teach when it comes to communication, I call that empathic communication for a number of reasons, which I won't get into in today's video. Now, what you might not hear too often, which is what this video will be about, and that is about taking personal responsibility. See, taking personal responsibility. But now people will imply, or some people who are gurus or see themselves as experts in this field will say, come on, Kingsley, that's implied. It's understandable that when we talk about communication, we're talking about personal responsibility, but that's being presumptuous in my thinking, that somehow people will somehow pick up the hints or have to read between the lines and understand that you're implying that personal responsibility is as the one of the highest priorities or importance that a person needs to do if you're going to fix the problems in your marriage. So my question is, how many people, do that? Now, personal responsibility is taking ownership of your own actions and choices. Taking ownership, owning up to that. Because what happened is your marriage is at the state it's in, not because of only one person. You've heard the phrase, it takes two to tango. And I believe in that. I believe it does. I know some people may say, that's almost like absolute, or I'm sorry, obsolete. That is no, taking two to tango is not true. Of course, it takes two people to tango. It does. However, one person can be the pusher or the more aggressive and the more vocal person that creates this quote tango, right? Because it has to be, you think about it from this perspective that when I teach on emotional intelligence, one of the basic tenets of emotional intelligence is simply how you manage your emotions and how you manage the emotions of others in that relationship context, right? It's about regulation. It's identifying your emotions and managing them, and also recognizing the emotional state of the context you're in with your partner, your husband, your wife, and also managing that portion of it as well. So it requires two people, so when someone will say to you, that's old, that's passe, that's old, don't listen to that. Don't listen to them. It is not true. It takes two to tango. However, you're only responsible for your portion of the equation. You're only responsible for your portion of the equation. And that's why starting off by taking personal responsibility is the fastest and more surefire way to fixing the problems in your marriage. Why wouldn't it be so? So what is personal responsibility? Taking ownership of your own actions and choices. What else is personal responsibility? It means being willing to admit when you're wrong and to make amends. This is a difficult part of personal responsibility in a relationship. Some spouse is have a hard time admitting when they're wrong. It's as if it's weakness to admit when they're wrong. It's as if they're doing something that is terrible if they admit they are wrong. But that is a part of relationship building. When I teach on forgiveness, whether I'm working with clients as a counselor, as a therapist, I teach them about this idea of forgiveness. And I hope if you're in a situation where you need to forgive or experience forgiveness, this is also true about what it is I teach. And when I say be willing to admit when you're wrong, I teach on the fact that when you're asking for forgiveness, that means you're requesting forgiveness, right? So you have a requester and you have one who's the receiver, the one who's recipient of the request of forgiveness. So the offender will say, I'm asking you to forgive me. And they'll preface that by saying, I'm so sorry for what I did. And they will give the context. And then they'll say, I was wrong. Would you please forgive me? So those three phrases are very important. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Now, I was wrong can be omitted if you are not aware of how wrong what you did was or is, right? So if, for example, you did something and you didn't realize it was something wrong, but it's still creating an offense, you still are required to at least do two of the three things, and that is, I'm so sorry. Would you please forgive me? Those two suffices in those moments. But in general, it's going to be when you're taking personal responsibility, you're going to see what it is you've done that created the issue that's in the marriage. So it means being willing to admit, and that's the hard part sometimes, especially if you're from a culture where it wasn't demonstrated or modeled for you. Like in my home growing up, it wasn't something that my dad, I've never experienced him when he was alive and when I was growing up as a child, him ever saying anything about he was sorry or he was wrong. I know he was wrong. We all knew. As children, we knew. My mom knew. So it's not like we did not know, but he never admitted. It was one of those last persons who would admit that he was wrong, but we knew he was wrong. Okay. So the third part of taking personal responsibility is being willing to change your behavior if necessary, right? It simply means that if you are behaving a certain way that's creating an offense and continues to hurt your partner, your spouse, then you need to change that behavior, because that's taking personal responsibility as well. So that is really the working definition of what I'm talking about when I say taking personal responsibility is the fastest and more surefire way to fix the problems in your marriage. Now, how can taking personal responsibility help your marriage? Well, I want to share 5 ways that taking personal responsibility can help your marriage. Number 1, it helps you to identify the problems in your marriage. That goes without saying. As a result, I mentioned earlier, when you take personal responsibility. And by the way, I did a video that I want you to encourage you to listen to, to go and watch, that I'll share with you towards the end. I share again at the end, but that video that I did, you can find it on the YouTube channel. It is was entitled "How to Build a Stronger Marriage." When you watch the video, I share with you the path to a happier marriage, and why identifying the problems. I call that the mirror check. So you want to go back and watch that. It's called the mirror check. So when you identify the problems in your marriage, you're doing a mirror check, and I explain that in that video. Number 2, it allows you to take steps to address the problems, right? So you have to know what the problem is before you can fix it, right? So taking personal responsibility helps you to identify the problems that you, okay, not your spouse, you have created, you have caused, and it gives you a place to start of how to fix or address the problems. That's why it's important to first do the mirror check, and then, as I described in that video, what that's like. But it allows you now to take steps to address the problems, and I call that in that video the bridge the bridge rebuild. I think it's what it's called, the bridge rebuild, something like that. But I talk about how to build a bridge, to get back into a better state in your relationship. And the third of the 5 is be accountable. It helps you to be accountable for your own actions. That's all you're responsible for, is what you do. You cannot be responsible for what your spouse does. So by taking personal responsibility, it allows you to be accountable for your own actions. And it puts you in an accountable position to your spouse, because you're going to show them that, you're willing to start with you. I love what the psalmist, one of the psalm that the psalmist was writing, and he said, "Search me, O God, and see if there's any wicked ways in me. Help me to turn from them. And then once I have addressed them, taken personal responsibility, then I can be able to help other people, or help, what you call it in that sense, help those outside who have not experienced God's love." But it first started by, search me, oh God. Look in the mirror. Let me see in the mirror what's gone awry with me, what's bent in me, what's out of whack with me, what's out of line with me. Help me to identify those things. So he prayed that. So you may want to even pray and ask God to help you. If you are really having a hard time seeing the role you're playing and to be accountable, pray and ask God, God, help me to see how I went astray, or how I was wrong, or where it is I'm missing the mark when it comes to my spouse, my husband, or my wife. So the first 3 so far I've mentioned is identify the problems in your marriage, number 1. Number 2, take steps to address the problems. Number 3, be accountable for your own actions. Now, there's 2 more to go, and I want to share those 2 with you. But before I share that with you, I'm going to ask you to oblige me to share also with you something I believe is so important. And I'm also going to share with you in a few moments some examples of what that may look like. How do you take personal responsibility? What that might look like in a marriage. And you can see if you relate to that and resonate. But I want you to, I want to share with you some important announcements before I share the last 2 of the 5 with you and the examples. So thank you for obliging me. So first, subscribe button. Help me to increase my subscribers list. I would really appreciate that. It does count. It does matter to YouTube. So I'm asking you to hit that subscribe button if you have not yet done so. It's one of those ways that this channel will have a broader reach when YouTube sees the number of subscribers, the subscription numbers are climbing. Secondly, something you might not know, and that is I have a podcast, Happier Marriage Secrets podcast, which you can access on any platforms you listen to a podcast. There are a number of topics I've covered there that really can help you in your marriage. You want to make sure you go and listen to all, and just kind of binge listen if you need to, because you can take this podcast with you. That's the beauty about the audio version. You can always just take that with you on a walk, in your car. For me, sometimes when I'm working in the yard, I listen to podcasts quite a bit. So this is one of those ways you can consume the content of the Happier Marriage Secrets podcast. Third thing I want to ask you to do, or to suggest or mention, is if you have not yet taken the Happier Marriage Assessment quiz, then I want to encourage you to do so, because this quiz allows you to get a good feel of the state of your marriage, and it gives you a number that that comes as far as done all the calculation, but also is a PDF that explains the number that you get from the quiz. So I want to encourage you, if you're not yet taken that quiz, to go to happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz, happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz. And if you're new to this channel and you're saying, man, who's this guy? You heard Kingsley. Well, I'm Kingsley Grant. and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified relationship coach. And also, I've been married for 38 years as of this recording, and I have 2 adult children. So when it comes to parenting and marriage, I think I have some personal experience, but as well as a professional experience, having counseled hundreds of couples over the last several years. And many of them have gone on to be successful in what they came in for. Some have not, I must say that, to be honest, but majority have had a turnaround because I've worked with them and they've worked with me. So I want to just mention and put that out there just in case you're wondering who I am. Okay. Now, how can taking personal responsibility for help your marriage? I'll share with you the first 3. Now, here's our last 2. The last 2 is it helps you to build trust with your partner. It's hard for your husband or your wife to somehow not feel trusting of you when he or she sees you taking personal responsibility and not blaming them for what the problem is. It does not mean they don't have a part to play. It's not somehow abdicating them of their own role. It's simply saying, you want to start with you. I love, I think it was an old hymnal or song that I grew up hearing, it's not my brother nor my sister, but it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's not my brother nor my sister, but it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, it's me, it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. So you see that's, I know I'm not the best to have, you say, Kings, that song, I don't even, when you're singing it, I don't even know. No, but I hope you get the idea. But it's simply saying, it's me, oh God, standing in the need of prayer. Not my brother, not my sister, not my husband, not my wife. It's me. Start with me, oh God. So your partner feels more trusting of you because they see that in you. So that's the 4th benefit. It allows you to build trust with your husband or your wife. And the 5th benefit is it creates a positive atmosphere in your marriage. Of course it would. Of course it would. So when you take personal responsibility, it begins to build a positive atmosphere in your marriage, and it lessens the tension and anxiety in your marriage. So the 5 things that taking responsibility helps you to do is, number 1, identify the problems in your marriage. Number 2, it allows you to take steps to address those problems. Number 3, be accountable for your own actions. Number 4, building trust with your partner, your husband or your wife. And number 5, it creates a positive atmosphere in your marriage. Now, let me give you a couple quick examples, and that is, imagine as a husband who is constantly criticizing his wife, and he may decide to take personal responsibility that by realizing that what he does is contributing to the problem. He's criticizing his wife about some, stupid things or whatever it is. It's a contribution to the problem. He can then start to focus on being more, number 1, seeing what his behavior is causing. So he begins to look in the mirror check, and then he begins to build a bridge back over to his wife and begin to, in the renewal, spark the renewal, a 3rd phase, and that will be discussed in the video you're watching. It can allow him to have a more supportive and a more understanding environment. So it creates that. So he can start focusing on that once he takes responsibility for his own action. And maybe it's a wife who's always complaining about her husband. She may take personal responsibility by realizing that she is not communicating her needs effectively, right? So her complaining is her responsibility because she is responsible to communicate her needs more effectively. And so her complaining is, is implied inside there. So she's not complaining what she wants. She's not communicating what she wants or what she desires, right? Those 2 things are important, wants and desires. And if she's not communicating that, then she's creating a problem. She can start by being more direct and honest about what she wants and what she desires. Okay. Now, the 3rd example that I want to share from a couple's perspective. So I shared from a husband, a wife, a couple's perspective. they're arguing constantly, right? A couple is arguing constantly, and they may take personal responsibility by realizing that they are not listening to each other. They're not listening to each other. And then they can start to focus on communicating more effectively by beginning to implement a listening skill, a listening part of their communication. And they can talk about that and demonstrate to each other they're willing to listen no matter what it is that's happening. So those are some examples, and I hope it resonated with you, and you may see yourself there. But I want you to begin by taking personal responsibility. Now, I know it's not always easy. Who wants to start with that? It's not always easy, but it's necessary. It's necessary, and it's essential for a happier and healthy marriage, as you can just imagine. So if you're struggling in your marriage, I encourage you to take some time to reflect on your role in the problems. Once you have taken personal responsibility, you can start to work on making those positive changes, where I call that you make those changes in the spark renewal stage, where you're sparking this new set of ideas and behaviors and habits, and that's causing a renewal of the relationship. So that's what this whole thing, how it all plays out. Now, if you want to learn more about how to take personal responsibility for your marriage, now I mentioned before the video I did, I want to start by encouraging you to check out the video, How to Build a Stronger Marriage, where I share with you the Happier Marriage Renewal Roadmap. And I also want to encourage you to listen to the Happier Marriage Secrets podcast. You can also find other helpful resources at KingsleyGrant.com. Okay, so with that said, my friend, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch and to listen. I really appreciate that. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and share this video with at least one other spouse. Just share this video. Tell them about it. Send them the link. However you need to share that with them, please do. Or maybe share it with a group that you're part of that may benefit from listening to this video and this channel as well. Again, hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate that. With that said, my friend, may God bless you. May his peace rest upon you. And may you and your spouse and your household be filled with God's peace and God's presence. And may you have a happier marriage. God bless you. And I hope to see you on the next video on this channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe and the notification bell so you'll be notified of all the new episodes or new videos that I do here on this channel. And so I want to say, with that said, God bless you and thank you for watching.